Well, hello.
We're live.
We are live, and I am live from the OSS studios. It's not as glamorous as it sounds, but it's awesome. I love it. Audrey is live from our library. How's everybody doing tonight? How are you
Who do we
doing?
have on?
Well, we've got a few people on here. I'm waiting for some comments to roll, and I'm hoping to see a Bing Bong, the Bing Bong duo, Jeff and Tim on here. Chris Brown is still in Hawaii.
When did he leave for Hawaii?
A while ago. And he just texted me. He says he's going to have to play catch up because he's getting sunburnt on a beach somewhere or playing with volcanic rock. Yeah.
Sounds spicy.
Oh, it definitely does. So tonight, it's been a while. I have been gone for, this will be what, 4 weeks? This is 4 weeks since the last SITREP. And yeah, it's been kind of hectic. So want to kind of talk to that hectic life that kind of happens sometimes. So long story short, I've had a couple trips that I've had to take, one of which took me to Ohio to a vehicle conference, and another one which took me to Las Vegas for the Mint 400, which was an amazing experience. And then I got back from those trips, and I was exhausted.
And then I left.
Yes.
And then you were in dad mode for almost a week.
I went Geo Bachelor dad mode for about a week.
Finally, the tables turned for once.
Yeah, exactly. But no, the big thing is that I was absolutely and totally exhausted. And any of those that know me closely know that I posted up on the OSS page earlier today, about an hour ago, about the Camaro, the M86Z, getting some work done to it. And I have had a shelf full of parts sitting there for probably 7 months now. I got cylinder heads. I've got Viking coilovers. I've got new headers, valve covers, you name it, a whole bunch of stuff. I've got some lizard skin coating to coat the inside of the car. It's been sitting there. And I have been, kind of burning the candle at both ends for work that's coming to the shop. We've had 2 Camaros come in, one with a cam swap, another that we put Viking coilovers on, and it's been a lot of fun, been great times. But yeah, I hit a point in which I was absolutely exhausted, and I want to say the first night back after I got back home from Nevada, the night I was supposed to do SITREP, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep on the couch. We family time kind of wound down, and we were watching a movie together, and I was asleep by 5 o'clock. If I remember that right. And I slept until 7 o'clock next morning. So big theme of tonight is talking fatigue. It happens, and it will shut a person down. With fatigue comes a whole litany of other things. It can cause safety concerns. We are traveling to many of these.
Before you get ahead of yourself,
go ahead.
How do you know that you have hit fatigue? What's the typical experience that you can say as a mechanic?
Oh gosh, you start forgetting things. And it's not like anything major. You'll remember the big things, but you'll forget the little things. For instance, the other day, trying to pull the car down, I was lowering a car off the lift. And I forgot to pull one of the release levers for the safety locks, and then the car started lowering down at an angle. I'm like, oh no, raise it back up and fix it. But that's little things like that you start to forget.
And if I remember correctly, small holes will sink big ships, correct?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the Titanic hit that iceberg, and that iceberg was not, that hole was pretty small comparative to the size of the ship.
Right.
So Paul Brimmeyer, Jenna Ice up at UMI Motorsports Park, he says the Iceman knows fatigue. I'm going to say this, Paul, and I'm going to say this to you when we get to UMI this year. Do you fly ice cold? And Tim Gordon, same thing. 8 hours after finishing the job, did I torque that bolt? Yeah, that's definitely. Did I torque that wheel? And there's a video floating around YouTube right now of a wheel that came off a truck. A Kia Soul hits it, flies in the air about 20 feet, and rolls over 3 times. It was a very, very bad wreck. And that's what fatigue can do. You'll forget to check the torque on bolts. And so that was the sign for me. You start forgetting the little things, you start dragging, you realize that you're drinking 7 cups of coffee a day or 4 energy drinks and trying to stay afloat, and your heart's just beating like, that's kind of the signs for me. I know I feel the best when I'm drinking a single cup of coffee in the morning, and then that's the end of it. I roll through the rest of the day, and I feel tired at 9 p.m., but I'm still, I'm not dragging at 4.
Yeah. So just to kind of go over some common symptoms of fatigue, Josh had asked me to sit just to give a little bit of education on what you could possibly expect with things like fatigue. Common signs are headaches, dizziness, chronic tiredness or sleepiness, like when you fell asleep on the couch at 5 o'clock. Muscle weakness. Muscle weakness is a big one, especially for car builders. You need your muscles. So when you're fatigued, you're doing a disservice to your muscles. And it also slows your reflexes as well as responses. So if you need to react in a timely manner, fatigue can compromise that. Reflexes
and responses, that seems to tie directly into autocrossing.
And let's not forget moodiness.
Moodiness. I don't know what you're talking about there. Paul Brimar said that you just diagnosed his life. So, yes. And he brings up checklists are a man's best friend when time's tight. That's very true. Checklists are huge. We've got our Operation Autocross series coming up, first event of the year. And I made a checklist earlier today to make sure we don't forget anything. It's very important, especially when you start getting things back to back to back. But, one of the big things with fatigue, and this whole kind of thing started because A, what I've been experiencing the last month or two, but B, there was a post that came up the other day from someone I'm following on Facebook talking about fatigue and how, you get crunch time before King of the Mountain or any of these big events, and you're working on the car till midnight for a week straight, making sure it's ready to go. And then you leave at 5 a.m. to drive 12 hours to a racetrack. And then you get there at 7 p.m., you hang out with friends, and by the time you've gotten maybe 4 hours of sleep before you are racing again. And one of the things is that, like the military, for instance, they got a flight, crew rest, and pilots have this too. Crew rest rules that must be followed to make sure those pilots are on par. And I kind of think that it's something we overlook as racers and, enthusiasts sometimes. We overlook that rest and how important it is to maintain that. Let's see, Tim brings up some things. Tingly hands and feet, tiredness, being extremely lax, dehydration. So when fatigue starts to set in, what can we do about it? Sleep.
Meditate.
Simple as that. It requires some attention, though. We've got to stay in tune with our bodies in order to realize that we're hitting that point. So what are some things to help recognize? How can we be mindful of the fact that we're starting to hit a point like that?
Well, it comes with a level of mind-body awareness. The symptoms that I listed off earlier, for example, slowed reflexes, understanding when you start to become impaired in your decision-making. And that component of listening to your body, like Tim pointed out, he'll get tingly hands and feet. And at that point in time, I think it's important to start to scale back on your work and give yourself a pause, take that break so that you can recoup.
That's I've done that before. Driving home from an event, I hit a wall. I was driving. I had probably another 9 hours of driving left, and I just decided I got to stop. I'm exhausted.
So this was a metaphorical wall. This wasn't an actual wall.
Yeah, it wasn't a physical wall, fortunately. But it wasn't like Pink Floyd. But I had to stop, and I ended up sleeping I was in the motorhome, and I ended up sleeping for about 2 hours, and then woke up and I felt fine. I felt 100 times better. But it's definitely one of those things that you got to pay attention to, because you're not only being a danger to yourself, you're a danger to others on the road. and I don't have specific data in front of me, but I've been told before that 24 hours of no real quality sleep is equivalent to being legally intoxicated. And so, that plays a huge part in it. And then we're trying to go race cars around a track. I mean, if you're doing door-to-door racing and you haven't slept, you're taking a substantial risk with that. And it's something that it's important to me because I've experienced it. I'm seeing it firsthand in myself.
And two, I think it can be recognized in others by just the way that, their eyes look, the way that their face changes, their affect.
Yeah. Tim and I were racing, Tim Gordon and I were racing at Camaro Fest last year. And towards the afternoon, you could definitely see it. He was starting to get hit. It was hot. I mean, it was July. We're up there. It's 90 something degrees and humid because it just got done raining. And we hit lunchtime and he went fired up his truck, sat in the AC with it blasting on high and just took a nap. He came back out and he was able to, recoup in that little bit of time with, again, like he said earlier, food, water, no alcohol, and cooling down helped him a ton. But yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be, we need to pay attention to. So how can we pay attention to ourselves and make sure that we're giving ourselves that time? Because everybody always worries about time, and I don't have enough time, I can't stop. So how do we change that?
Well, look at the behavior that happens. For example, when you're in the garage and you mess up on something and you get extremely frustrated, ask yourself, why am I messing up right now? Mm-hmm. What's off about this? Is it an attention problem? Is it a tired problem? Or are you just not in the right headspace? Because it could be one of several different factors. It doesn't always necessarily have to be fatigue. But when you start to notice that something is off and you do realize that you are tired, more tired than you probably should be while working on your car, that's when, like Tim said, you have to take a step back. And, sleep is a tricky subject because sleep disturbance is a real thing, especially like in the military community. Sometimes it's easier said than done to get sleep, especially if somebody has high anxiety or, something going on mentally. We'll just put it that way. So if you are a person that does struggle to actually truly get sleep, that's when you just have to take a step back and lay down, rest, allow your body to rest. And if your mind and body are not in it, well, that's probably something that you should consider when it comes to building the risk factor of it.
No, that definitely comes into play. And then Paul brings up maintenance of the body, maintenance of the equipment. And he wasn't sure. So I posted this up because he wasn't sure if we were going to talk personal or equipment fatigue, but they're relatable. And that's exactly it. When you're going through your car, doing your pre-race checks, things like that, if you're tired, you might miss something that's not right, that's incorrect, that's broken. And a lot of failures you see on the track are a result of, just plain old wearing out. And no different than a Heim joint for your suspension. They have a wear life. They will wear out and you need to replace them. Your body has an energy level, just like a tank of gas, that once it runs out, you're out. You got to fix that, and sleep and health all come into this. You see a lot of memes and jokes that run around about, football player's body and a basketball player's body, and they're in shape or they're skinny or they're big or whatever. And then you see a race car driver's body and he's got a big old pot belly and looks out of shape. And we laugh about that, but I'd be curious to see some of these, techs that are, might be a little overweight that build amazing machines, what they could be doing if they were taking 45 minutes a day to focus on themselves. I had a conversation last week with a guy, with a mentor of mine, and he brought that exact thing up. Taking care of yourself is every bit as important as anything else you do in your life, including physical health. And, if you'll take 45 minutes, a day to eat your food properly, or, take time to answer emails or whatever you're doing, why wouldn't you take 45 minutes to take care of your body and do something that it needs?
So you are your car's best tool.
I'd say so. Even if you're paying someone else to build the car for you, you're still driving the car yourself. And I'll give an example too. Last year at King of the Mountain, we talk about being present in the moment, right? Being available. Saturday morning at King of the Mountain, I pulled up to grid. I was the first car to take laps that day, and we're about 5 minutes out from going. And I use my phone in the dash as a camera to record and see what's happening, to record videos and whatnot. And it rang. I got 5 phone calls. I tried to, mute them, but after the 5th phone call, I'm like, I got to see what's going on. And I got the phone call. I answered the phone, and our dog Otis, he's a 10-year-old lab, and a wonderful dog. But our friends that were watching him called us and said that he had a gastric distress syndrome, and his stomach had basically flipped. And if any of you own a large breed dog, you know that this is something that if you don't take care of immediately, the dog will die from it. That's just the way it is. And so we had to make a decision right then and there on what to do. And, we opted to get in the surgery and get him taken care of and whatnot. But that phone call completely threw me off for the rest of the day.
It was complete emotional depletion for you.
Immediate depletion. I had no energy left to do anything. And it took, reality speaking, I probably should have pulled off grid and parked the car. Really should have. When it comes to autocross, you're generally racing by yourself, so you don't have to worry about hitting other cars. But I just as easily could have slid off track and, hit cone workers, or, hit somebody parked off the track, something of that effect. And so that, reality speaking, I should have pulled off track given my mental state at the time. And that's a hard realization to come to. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Why?
Pride, ego. You're at the biggest autocross event of the year, and who wants to pull off track and admit they've got life issues that are taking place? Nobody
takes a lot of strength to admit that there's something wrong.
Nobody wants to admit that, and everybody wants to be the hero. Everyone wants to say, oh, well, I had all this adversity and I overcame it and did really well. Well, okay. That's not necessarily wrong, but
it impairs decision-making.
It does. It impairs decision-making, and, overcorrecting when your car gets a little sideways and you end up hitting a tire wall and destroying your car. Well,
it's unfortunate that Chris Brown's not on right now, because I'd be curious to know how much sleep he got the night before he crashed. Yeah.
So Chris and I have talked a lot about that crash that he was in, and he's got, videos and everything, but he had it was a mechanical failure. His brake caliper seized up and got locked up and crashed. But I think that that is a good thing to talk about. What was going on when whatever happened. Where were you? You know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of those things that's important, and I think people need to recognize that and understand that it's okay to take a step back if you need to. It really is. When I took a step back, I love SITREP. It's my favorite thing of the week because, I talk about it. Anybody that knows me knows Monday nights are my favorite night because of the fact that I get to do this and I get to be in front of people and talk with folks and, Tim and Paul and everybody that's, on here posting up. I love it. But I had to take a pause in order to kind of recoup myself because I was completely drained.
Yeah, you had to put your needs first before you could connect, really.
Yeah. But, recognizing that and being able to take that time, since I got back, I've kind of gotten to a little bit better of a fitness routine. It's being a little more consistent with when I'm going to sleep during the work week, when I'm waking up, and I've been very consistent about it. And heck, I'm already noticing a difference in how I feel. Heck, this morning we woke up and you asked me how much coffee I'd had, and I'm like, I hadn't had nothing yet. I was pinging off the wall.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, I hadn't had any coffee, but I went downstairs, I exercised, I got my heart rate up, I woke up. It definitely it's making an impact. And I've only been consistent for about a week now, but those things can help build that. So why don't you talk to us about how to improve your ability to prevent fatigue? What can we do? What methods can we put in place? Everybody knows sleep. You got to get sleep, right? But what else can we do to help improve stamina?
Well, I do think fatigue can be inevitable, right? Because especially if you're a car builder, it takes a lot of energy. And it's knowing your limits, knowing when to scale back. Every body is different and everybody has their different limits that they can operate by. Unfortunately, when it comes to combating fatigue, there is no one solid answer. The best answer is rest, but rest comes in many forms. For example, some people find reading to be a restful activity. I find it to be a restful activity. You find it to be a totally different experience. Yeah. Reading drains you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it all comes down to self-care, and self-care is comprised of several different categories. You've got your physical self-care, so taking care of your body. You've got your mental, emotional self-care. So for example, if your mind isn't right, some people can tune into, watching a funny movie or something, and that helps to boost their emotional self-care. That day that the dog was possibly going to die, it completely depleted your emotional self-care. So what did you do in that moment to get your mind back in the game? Or did you at all get your mind back in the game?
I really didn't, to be honest. I did.
You had to sit with it.
I kind of just shoved it in a pocket and continued on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's something that, on the military side of the house is kind of ingrained in you. It's like adversity happens, put it away and deal with it later. And that's kind of how I responded.
Right. And that worked for you. It might be different come other drivers,
Yeah.
But then there's also other components of self-care, such as like spiritual self-care, depending on whatever religious affiliation you or someone else might be. Praying is very healing for people. Not everybody, but it does work for some.
Yeah, that's very true. So I want to post this question Paul asked. Do you feel poor time management compounds fatigue by causing additional stress?
Absolutely. Yeah. Poor time management increases anxiety.
So interesting thought here. Those that follow, I don't know how many on here are watching this, but follow Tony Watley. But I would encourage you, if you don't, to go follow Tony Watley. And I would also encourage you to listen to his podcasts. He's got a ton of really good information that he puts out, and a lot of really good people that he listens to and that talked with him on his podcast. But he has mentioned in multiple times that it's not time management that is the problem. There is no change in time. Time is time. 1 second is 1 second. 1 minute is 1 minute. 1 year is 1 year. It's task management that becomes the issue. And managing your task load is what really people should focus on rather than managing your time. Because if you manage your tasks, you may be able to, finish early. And another business mentor of mine told me, we were talking last year, and he said that he gives himself a list of tasks every day. And he's the kind of person that works very well off a routine. He wakes up in the morning, he checks social media, he does his reading, and then he gets to the office and does his work, right? But he mentioned that he will give himself his list of tasks to do. And sometimes he's done at 11 a.m. And if he's done at 11 a.m., guess what he's done? And he takes that extra time for himself or his family or whatever. But he manages his task, which to the degree that he had more time. Now, some days that doesn't always happen. Sometimes these tasks you'll run into, speed bumps or what have you, and it takes more time. But it's a matter of managing your task load and not task saturating yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you think about it, when there's poor time management, it increases your anxiety, and then the anxiety plays on the body as a whole by causing more stress. And over time, that stress will continue to build. And not to get too scientific here, but we all have a central nervous system that keeps us functioning. When our central nervous system is overloaded with anxiety and stressors, that's where all that impairment comes into place. Does that make sense?
Oh, it definitely does. It definitely does. And Robert posted this comment. I'll let the reader, the viewers read this, but basically he's letting us know here he didn't practice self-care, and it ended up causing major issues that he had to address. And that's one thing I think is important for people to understand, that little things add up. They may not be a big deal now, but it'll be a big deal later.
Small holes sink big ships.
Exactly. And so, I'll go ahead and mention this since we're on here. I've had a cholesterol problem for the better part of the last 10 years of my life. And I'm not very old. And it's like, why do I have cholesterol problems? And I've done an extensive amount of research, and I've looked into it. I eat relatively healthy. I don't drink excessively. All the health factors that you would look at, you're eating the yolks of eggs or you're eating saturated fat. I don't do a lot of that. But what I found is that when you are at a high level of stress all the time, your body will end up producing more cholesterol. Now, for those that don't know, cholesterol is basically the conduit, or the ship, so to speak, that helps pass hormones through the body. And when you're stressed, your body's releasing more hormones than it normally would, and your cholesterol is passing that. And about 5 years ago or so, 4 years ago, I went and got a full blood panel. I got a full physical, and my cholesterol was through the roof. And so I made a massive diet change. I completely cut out alcohol. I limited carbs. I cut out bacon, the nectar of life. I stopped eating all of those unhealthy things. I cut dairy down. I was drinking skim milk. And I even went to almond milk for about 2 months. And after 6 months, my cholesterol was the same level it was before I changed the diet. And I couldn't figure out what in the world. Well, stress was the cause of it. What it boils down to is that my diet and my healthy, my eating habits were not causing me cholesterol. It was the level of stress that I was under all the time. And recently got a physical. Life stress is still there. It always will be. But it's not as much as it was at the point in time I got that physical. And my cholesterol counts are far lower now than what they were then. And so that stress, that fatigue of not taking care of yourself will take a toll on your body in more ways than one. And hypertension, cholesterol, blood pressure, all those things tie into that.
So what have you done for stress reduction?
Well, the biggest thing is I've started getting a little more physical activity in. Over Christmas time, we got a punching bag in the house, and I've started using the punching bag, and I've started doing, a little bit more activity through that. And, I got a routine in the morning right now, and that has made a difference in how I feel. And honestly, trimming the fat, cutting out unnecessary things that I don't need to be dealing with, adding to my plate. Sometimes people like, oh yeah, I got you, I'll take care of you. And they don't realize how much they're really hurting themselves by trying to add more and more to the plate. And so that's been a huge thing. Saying no. It's okay to say no sometimes. Another good friend of mine, local fabricator, him and I talk about once a month or so, and we'll just kind of check on each other, see how we're doing. And right now, he is turning away about 95% of all work that comes to him because he doesn't have the ability to book it. He's already booked out 4 months, and he's like, I turned down most of it because I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important, being able to say no without feeling like you're letting somebody down.
Without guilt-free no.
Exactly. Yeah, Paul, he brings up similar to me. He was 33 at the time. I'm pretty sure when I got that first set of blood panels, I was 33 as well. So, and I had just finished running ultra marathons. So I still had, health issues even after being in the, physical condition enough to go run a 32-mile race in 6 hours. That's a lot of stress against the body physically, but you have to be in good physical condition for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Paul brought up a good point too about watching people lose time through TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and then complain that they have no time. It's a beautiful comment.
Yeah, I think there's a place for that. But with anything else in life in moderation, if all you ever drink is water, you're still not going to be healthy. You got to get electrolytes in, right? You've got to moderate. If you need 20 minutes a day to unwind by watching cat videos, then take 20 minutes a day to watch cat videos. But when you let that take hours of your day, every time you stop for 2 seconds and you're watching TikTok or Instagram, I mean, that's going to impede your ability to get other tasks done.
Yeah. Save it for your toilet time.
Don't get too long on that, though. Your legs will fall asleep.
Are you speaking from experience?
I might be. Who knows? Come hang out with OSS. We'll talk toilet time and everything in between.
In between?
Yeah, why not? Oh, man. So, we're about 30 minutes in. It's been an awesome show. I really appreciate everybody coming on here to talk, and hang out with us tonight and listen to what we've got. And Paul brings up de-stressor becomes your stressor. Wow.
Paul's on fire tonight.
Paul, you want to join us on SITREP? I mean, you're speaking.
But that does bring up a good point that what you use to de-stress may not always work. And that's when you have to change it up. You have to find something new for you in case your typical go-to starts to use its frequency, if you will.
Yeah, that's a huge point. So I remember when you and I got together and when we were dating, I told you that, car stuff that's my go-to to relax. Well, it's kind of changed. Now the car stuff has become our business and it's not as relaxing as it once was. It is a stressor. And now I've got to find other ways to relax. And, we bought a new house last year. We got about 6 acres of property. And my new de-stressor is going out cutting wood. I don't know what it is about breaking out the chainsaw or breaking out the axe, but cutting wood is my go-to to really, truly unwind. Mm-hmm. And I'll get done and I'll be absolutely exhausted physically, but mentally I'll feel like $1 million.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see more mechanics doing yoga because I see how much you're constantly bending over the car, getting under the car. You could benefit from a good stretch.
All I'm saying is that mechanic yoga is a thing. I'm going to see if I can hurry and save this real quick. This is great. All right, we're gonna post this up here. Bear with me, those of you in Facebook land. All right, watch this. Here we go. We're gonna add this photo. Let's see if I can do this. The buildup is intense. I don't know if it's going to work very well for me. Let's see. All right, it's super pixelated, but you know what? I will deal with it. Tim Gordon, if you're watching, go ahead and make fun of me later. And here we go. Share. Mechanic yoga. If you've been there, you've been there.
The fantastic back then.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Getting those feet up, kicking the ceiling, just making things happen. But yeah, it's whatever it is, whether you get into yoga, whether you get into P90X, you get into running, you get into boxing. And you know, that's the big thing. Is that going to, you know, find that method to help you? Is, you know, what's going to be the key to helping you find that release of stress?
Right.
Ramey asked questions about the cylinder heads in the car. Ramey, I will we'll talk on the back end. AFR heads, they're going to be legit. But yeah, so we definitely need to be mindful of those things, and it's important. It really is, because if you don't take care of your body, you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else, let alone your own race car.
Yeah. Eric Chadwick says that stress is no joke. He was in the hospital for 2 days. I'm glad all is well now, but you know, that also kind of makes me think of another point, that stress management is not just one thing, it's a process.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a trial and error process. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. What works for one person may not work for another person. And what works today may not work tomorrow.
Yeah. So, I love this. So Ramey talks about when he was doing oval track races, 100-lap races. They carried the goo energy gels and a Camelback in the car. When I ran my ultras, I did the exact same thing. I had a Camelback that I wore on my back, and then I had a belt that had 2 water bottles and a little pouch. The Camelback was water. On the belt, there was electrolyte water to help replenish the salts, and then the little gels I had in the pouch. And that helps with that physical fatigue that you start to experience, because one thing that people probably forget about too, you know, the racetrack and people are eating, you know, hot dogs and hamburgers, and they're not really eating good food. What you take in will have a direct impact on the energy that you are able to put out. And you know, Ramey, I'm really happy you brought that up, because that's a huge thing too. Track food is, you know, everyone loves track food because it's there and you're super hungry when you get it. But, you know, having that full course meal, and anybody that knows me knows I don't like vegetables, but I will try to force myself to eat vegetables in order to make sure that I'm getting what I need.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, on that note, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. It's glad to be back. We're going to be back next week. We've got Brian Pico with Zoran. Ramey got in trouble for mentioning engine person. Nah, Ramey, you're good, bro. You're good. Next week, Brian Pico will be on talking Zoran and some parts that he has updated his car, and getting it ready to go for the season, some things that he's noticed. And we'll be back at it. Stay tuned to follow along updates. We've got a lot of work going on with the M86 this year, and we got some upgrades across the board with Chris Brown and his Mustang, and a few others. It's definitely exciting for what we've got coming down the line. So stay tuned for that. Ramey, I'm sending the official invite to Paul right now via this live broadcast. Paul, we'd love to have you on, man. I'll reach out to you when we get done here through private message, and we'll see if you want to come on and join us. We definitely love to have you. But on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you, Audrey, my lovely wife.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's always good. And again, thank you all on the Facebook land for joining in. We'll see you next week.